Don't focus very much on the technical part, which is important, but it's not what you are 100% evaluated against. 60-70% is about really your behavior, your communication, you're asking the right questions, understanding the requirement, and having this discussion about a trade-off. And with that mindset, you go to the system design interview with less pressure on the technical design and more on the engineering part or on the conversational part.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thank you.
I like your stories actually. For the L5 seniority level you are aiming for, they are good stories. Just fix the few things that we mentioned in the feedback. I'm gonna start with tell me about yourself questions just to warm it up. Just in 1 minute, please give me like a little overview on your career.
Sure. So I'm Anurag. I was working with Kijiji here in Canada, which is it's a re-commerce website. So, and I got laid off back in June. So, currently I'm trying to apply for roles, and I joined Kijiji in 2022 November. Prior to that, I was part of Vitech Systems in New York City, USA. Prior to which, I was pursuing my master's from Carnegie Mellon in 2018 and 19 in information systems management. That's me.
If you're still using old Faang prep guides, you're already losing ground. The rules have changed, and this free AI playbook shows you what's really being tested in modern Faang interviews. Insider strategies, hidden evaluation matrix, a 90-day mastery plan, the exact playbook successful candidates are using right now. Everyone's grabbing it. Don't be the one left behind. Link in description.
Let's add some spices to this. If you can tell me maybe as part of this intro, you could add maybe one project or one achievement that you've done and you think it can make a good hook for your introduction.
Okay. So as part of my role at Kijiji, I was mainly involved, with the autos side of Kijiji. So, we were working with, a Carfax API, which was mainly about, like placing the pricings of the second-hand vehicles, into different categories, of, whether it being good priced or fairly priced, or bad priced and stuff like that. And yeah, and a few other features all along the website, all of the pages.
All right. Maybe prepare a little bit more description for a project, just to make it a little bit more appealing for the interviewer to ask you follow-up questions on it. Do you work with customers?
Not
Do you work
directly.
with customers?
No. So the customers, they usually give feedback to the customer service people, and then they get to the product managers, and then the product managers, then like come up with the, newer features, or maybe solutions to the existing issues that the customers are facing, and then we get them as part of a, say, Jira ticket or requirements and stuff like that.
Okay. Do you think you have a story about one of these instances where you received a feedback from a customer?
Yes, absolutely.
Are you familiar with the STAR formula?
Yes.
Okay, let's try to follow that.
Yeah.
structure, please.
Absolutely, yeah. So back in 2023, we ended up in a situation, where the sellers on our platform, were complaining that the number of views or the way they were getting the responses from the buyers, that was actually going down. Like they were complaining, that when they created an ad to sell any item on Kijiji, they were not getting faster replies, and also the ones that they were getting were not of that good quality. And they were also complaining, saying that their listings, as soon as they posted, within maybe a couple of hours, they used to go to the page number 2, which is why their visibility was also going down. This was not happening prior to 2023, so we thought of investigating this, to find out why this was the case. And the ticket was in the backlog for like maybe a couple of months, but then it eventually got prioritized and it came to me. So as part of my investigation, when I checked, I could see that we had a lot of listings, which had similar.
So how did you receive? How did you know that issue? How did you receive that complaint?
It was through a Jira ticket, which was created by our product manager, and then it was prioritized into our sprint, saying that we need to work on this particular customer complaint in this sprint. So, and then I picked up the issue, and I could see that in our database, there were like multiple ads from the same seller, but with just the wordings were changed, and that too they were like, maybe they had added an extra space, or maybe added an extra character at the end. So basically they were trying to repost their existing ads again and again, so that they always show up on the top instead of the actual order in which those listings should appear. Which is why the genuine sellers, their listings were, like they were basically being pushed to page number 2 within maybe a couple of hours of getting posted. So the solution that I came up with was, so we already had one microservice which was looking into this. It was called as duplicates detector, but it was just checking for the hash codes of the ads. It was basically trying to match for exactly similar ads, instead of like maybe doing a fuzzy match kind of a thing. So what I did is I changed the code, and I instead implemented Levenstein distance on to match two listings. And I, like, with some experimentation, I landed up at a score of 90%, that if two of the listings match more, sorry, greater than or equal to 90%, then those two listings should be considered as duplicate listings, and the newer listing should not be posted, but it should not, like, the status should not change from posted to active. It should drop it right, I mean, somewhere in between, right, with a proper log message saying that this particular listing is a spam, or it is a duplicate of the existing listing. So after I implemented this, the duplicate listings went down by almost 70%. There were still a few more, like, improvements left to be done on this same microservice. So I basically I decreased the similarity check to maybe 88%, saying that even if it matches, let's say, 88%, it should still consider this listing as a duplicate. And that is when the customer service, they stopped receiving these complaints, and it dropped to almost like 95%. Still 5% of the listings still went through, because I tried making it even more stricter, but then the genuine, like, sellers of the autos, they then started to complain, saying that, hey, let's say two of our ads, let's say for the same Honda Civic car, are now being flagged as as a spam listing. So please do not do this. So we had to cap it at 87%, or around 88%. I forgot the exact percentage, but it was around 87 or 88%. That's where I had to stop it.
So you did that fix. How did you communicate that back to your customer?
Right. So our customer service team, they did the job, of communicating these fixes to our customers directly. So once the fix was in place, the product team, they were informed of it, because they were tracking those tickets, so they could obviously see the progress, that this change has been deployed. And once the product team found out about it, then they propagated the same news back to our customer service, and then they started seeing the drop in the spam listing complaints that they were getting.
So did you communicate directly by any chance to your customer to make sure that your fix was basically addressed the issue they started with?
No, so we did not have any direct channel of communication with our customers. I mean, the developers were always shielded from the customers. The complaints always needs to come through the proper channel. So
Okay, so who did you communicate with to make sure that basically what you did was the right thing? How did you
yeah.
ensure that you corrected the issue?
So I contacted our the product team, and then they also did some testing on the QA environments, by posting some like similar kind of ads, like the way they were doing on production. And they tried to test and see if the duplicate listings were still passing through. And when they saw that no, it is not, I mean, it is no longer passing through, they approved my solution, and then it was deployed onto production.
Okay. All right. Feedback. It's a good story, actually. I don't really have a lot of comments there. You addressed my what I usually ask about, which is the issue, the data you included there to describe your issue, and then the data you added to describe the result, which is very important. And you maintained a good depth when you mentioned, like, you listed the actions you took. So it was a good story, actually.
Okay, thank you.
You can spend months learning agentic AI or cut that time into half with a structured program by Interview Kickstart, where you actually build and ship two AI agents into production with a mentor from Faang guiding you through every step. It's called Agentic AI Career Boost Program. And if you think it's just another generic course, spoiler alert, it's not. It's customizable depending on your domain. Engineers, you have a Python-based AI engineering path. If you're a PM or a manager, you take no-code, low-code use case path. And both paths could be paired with Faang interview prep for AI-driven roles. But the best way to learn more about this program is through the free webinar. Here you can get all the details about the program, ask your questions, and see if it's the right fit for you. And if it is, you'll be joining a company of 25,000 professionals who have already leveled up through Interview Kickstart. Many now at Faang, Anthropic, OpenAI, already crossing 300K plus. And here is what some of them say. I'll put the link to the free webinar in the description, as well as pin it in the comments so you don't miss it. See you all there.
All right. I'm going to ask you another story around the same customer obsession, just to make sure that we get that one right.
Absolutely.
Tell me about a time when you had a difficult interaction with a customer, a negative experience.
Yeah. So there was another, customer complaint around the fact that they were getting spammed on their phones. So they were, getting like a lot of spam messages on their WhatsApp and on their text, like through SMS. So we set out to see why that was happening. The only source was, that so when they posted a listing on our site, there was an option to also include their phone number along with it, so that the buyers can contact them easily. But there were these, let's say, spammers, who were trying to use bots, to basically uncover all of those phone numbers in, let's say, in a batch. And then they were collecting those phone numbers, and then they were trying to like spam our customers. So our customers, were really angry. They were like, we would, either stop posting our phone numbers on your site, or we are just going to, altogether stop posting on your site, which would be, so bad, right? So when this ticket came to me, obviously, within like maybe a couple of weeks, this ticket, was prioritized again by our product team, the exact flow, which I have already told you. So yeah, when this ticket came to me, the first solution, that the product team already had, by contacting our infra team, was that, let's implement a solution using Reblaze, which is basically, going to block, like, let's say more than 10 requests, per second, or maybe 10 requests per minute, or, from the same IP address. I was a bit against this because the IP addresses which we see are basically, the public IP addresses, right? And not the actual, the actual private IP addresses. So let's say, 5 different users, are connected to one single, let's say, ISP, or, let's say they are basically part of the same house, then their public addresses would be the exact same. So the problem is if you start, blocking them based on their public IP addresses, you might be actually, blocking correct requests to view the phone numbers. And but then the product team was like, no, we have already discussed about this, with with the infra team, and we want to do this. I was like, okay, fine. If you still want to go ahead with it because it is your own solution, I am okay with it. But here's basically my solution to this problem is, we should be implementing a validation check, like, reCAPTCHA, which we already had it. So, any user which passes a CAPTCHA check, only they would be, then allowed to view the phone number. And you wouldn't believe, but they implemented, the Reblaze solution around 11, and by 2:30, or 3 p.m., the customer service, they basically started to get complaints, from actual buyers complaining that, they are no longer able to see the phone numbers. So I was, both happy and sad, but yeah. And then I took the I took about, 3 days time, to implement the entire reCAPTCHA solution on the back end. Instead, I also coordinated, with the front end. I so the way, reCAPTCHA works is, you have a public key and then you have a private key. Then you check if the incoming code is correct, and then you basically decrypt that, and then, Google. So our platform was on GCP. So Google, we were using Google's reCAPTCHA service. So they were the ones, who were trying to verify whether the incoming IP address, is valid and whether this request should be allowed or not. So initially, when this solution went into prod, it was about like it could catch around like 70% of the fraudsters, because, it was still learning through the patterns. And then within maybe a week or so, we started to see, like 90% of those complaints had disappeared from the customer service, and then eventually it stopped altogether. So yeah, this was another, instance.
Okay, did you prepare for this story?
Yes.
Okay, because the way how it sounded, it was a little like the structure. The story was good, but the structure, the flow of the story, it sounded like you were like less sure than the first one. The first one, it sounded more well structured, like
Okay.
confident. Started with the situation, action, task, and the result. For this second one, there were like some back and forth between the different components. So it was, I could relate to your story, but it could use some, I would say, more like better flowing when you tell it.
Fluidity. Okay, I see.
Did you notice that? Did you like, how did you feel when telling the story?
I felt like, I should have maybe added the Reblaze part with the situation as well. That would have given maybe a better platform to, why I went with the reCAPTCHA solution. And that was the only thing that needed to be fixed.
Yeah, and that's another thing. One trick to address this, basically, this flow, is when you start telling a situation, start with the problem statement, preferably add some quality, some some measurement there. Make it quantify, like measurable statement, and then go to task, actions, and then when you go to the results part, try to map the result to the statement you started with, and with this piece of quantity that you included there. So assuming your issue was like performance was like 20% down, for example, go through the story and then wrap it up with how your actions basically impacted that 20% performance. So the result should be like it went from 20% to like 50%. This is how you make your story flowing, because you start with an issue and you end up with the same issue but with a different impact. And this is based on the actions you took.
Okay, got it.
All right, let's give it a try. So my next question to you is, tell me about a time when you made an error in judgment or when you made like a bad decision.
Yeah, so I remember I told you about the spam detector, like the duplicate detector microservice. So I'm going to improve, like I'm going to add some more details to that same story.
So tell me a standalone story.
Okay.
It's okay to use the same story today for your interview. This is not okay. But even if you are going to do like a repeated story, tell it from the start as if it was a standalone story.
Yeah, I'm just going to use the same story for now because I don't have another one.
Okay.
Okay. So, the situation, was that the users, were complaining about the fact that their ads, were not receiving as many responses as they used to, let's say, or maybe in the previous year. And also they were seeing that their listings were dropping down to page number 2 within maybe a couple of hours of posting it, which is not normally what should happen on the Kijiji site. It should stay on, like the most recent listings usually stay on page number 1 for so that they get the most number of views. Now, the so what happened is when this complaint reached me via the product team, I had to go through go through our database, and I could see that in our database there were multiple listings from the same seller, but with the wordings changed, maybe by adding an extra space, or maybe by adding an extra character to the end, or maybe even sometimes just capitalizing a few of the characters. So what I did is I found out that from the tech leads, that we already have a service called as duplicate detector. So I went through the code, and it was basically doing this, so that it was trying to exactly match. It was converting the case into smaller case, and then it was trying to match the two listings and see if the listings match, and if yes, it would drop it. Otherwise, it would allow it on the site. So the issue is the issue with that was it was allowing for these kind of duplicate listings, or these kind of creative duplicate listings that the spammers had now come up with. So as a result, I implemented, or I changed the implementation into using a Levenstein distance instead of using the existing like complete matching algorithm. So the mistake which I did was I rolled it out to 100% traffic right away.
You did what?
I rolled it out to 100% traffic on production, which, so for our like for the sellers, let's say from a dealership, or a dealer seller who was trying to list their cars on our site, then they started to see issues with it. And the dealers are actually the paid sellers, because they pay to even enter into Kijiji. So losing a dealer was like, it is a big revenue hit for the site. So I immediately like rolled back my changes. And when the next time, after adjusting the matching percentage from 90% down to 87, or 88%, when I again rolled it out, I did it in gradual. So I first I only did it for 10% of the traffic. Then I waited for like a couple of days, and then I rolled it out to 25%. Then after a week to 50%, and then after another week to 100%. And it was fine this time around. There were no complaints.
Okay. So given that you made the mistake, I'm assuming that you had maybe limited or not enough experience on that issue. How did you know that these actions actually are the right ones to do to correct the error you made?
Yeah. So because of the complaints that were coming from the dealers, right? So I picked up a few of the dealers' listings, and I tried checking it against, like I tried checking on my local. with those listings, as to which are passing, and which are not passing, and at what percentage of matching, would those listings pass, but not the, the spam listings which the normal sellers were trying to create. Those should not pass. And then I found the sweet spot at 88%, matching. But since last time I had, rolled it out to 100% of the traffic, and all of, our dealers got affected. So this time I did not want that, even if, let's say, it would affect. So let's say, if I roll it out to only 10% of the traffic and any dealer would get affected, it would not be all of them. It would just be, out of that 10% traffic, maybe like, let's say 3 or 4 or maybe 5 dealers might get affected. And then all I have to do is read out the traffic, maybe to an older deployment, and it would be fine. So this is the route, which I chose. And by
How did you know what you chose was the right one?
yeah. So for that, I had to talk to, my tech leads, and I had to ask them, that this is what I'm thinking. And does this make sense? And they said, yes, you should always do, a gradual rollout. And so every time, you're trying to launch a new feature, you either, like use something called as an A/B testing, in which you put some users, into a test group and some you don't, and then you basically monitor them, or you do, a gradual rollout, so that even if any of the users get affected, it's not going to be, any major chunk, and the complaints that you get, you can quickly address it. And or for the time being, at least you can maybe read out the traffic to an older revision, and that would, solve the issue that you are having, like, on hand.
Okay. Okay, so can we talk about the results part? Can we expand on the result?
Yeah. So as a result, this time around, like, there were no complaints. So I was trying to basically monitor, for any complaints, right? So at 10% when there were no complaints, so I moved on to 25%, then to 50, then to, to eventually, to 100%. The complaints from the dealers were zero, which was the main motive of this new change. And the complaints, that were coming through our customer service had also gone down by 95%. 5% listings, were still getting through, but you had to, find a sweet spot, where you can balance the two. So I had to, leave it at that.
Okay, so this is another good story. I just want to comment on the framework on answering this question, right? So this is a write a lot question principle. So, and usually what we expect you to demonstrate here is that first, if you make a mistake, you recognize, basically, you admit that you made the mistake. So you recognize your lack of experience on that area. And then from there, I want you to talk really briefly about the actual mistake, but more about what you did to fix that mistake and what you did to avoid it in the future. So this is where I want you to spend most of your story time on. I mentioned the mistake briefly, which is you did correctly. And then the most of the story should be around, okay, what did you do to correct it and to maybe create a process so that you avoid it and other people in your team will avoid that mistake in the future.
Okay.
So this is how the framework should look like when telling stories about being right a lot principle. So the process side wasn't very clear in your story. You did the mistake, you corrected the mistake, you like talked with other people to validate your actions, but you stopped there, right? You talked about the result, but it wasn't really clear what you did basically to avoid that or to make other people avoid that same mistake in the future.
Okay.
And maybe that would be like an area of improvement for your story.
So something like, I documented the process that I did, and I would do it.
Something like that. So some sort of process that would maybe enable the other team members also to learn from that experience and avoid that same mistake.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
So let's do another question. My next one will be about learn and be curious. This is a very important principle. So tell me about a time when you had to ask for help from another expert to complete your job.
Right. Okay. So there was a time, when I was working on a Kijiji Autos feature, which was about integrating the Carfax API into our system. So the feature was that the price that the sellers are quoting on their vehicles, we had to basically go and check with Carfax because they had the price rating data and show on our site whether this particular price is a good deal, a fair deal, or maybe an excellent deal, or maybe it's a poor pricing. Now, what the task that came to us, was to basically implement this and coordinate with Carfax's backend team, to get everything set up properly. So then when we were trying to implement this though, we realized that the Carfax API, has a limit of only 10 requests per second and not beyond that. So it was, and even with those 10 requests per second, it like one average request was taking around 200 milliseconds to complete. So we were never able to hit the 10 requests per second limit anyway. So we were thinking, what do we do? How do we leverage, at least the max capacity of this particular API, right? And so we thought, first of all, because it's a slow API, obviously, we had to include a pub sub, to keep the events flowing in through the queue, so that even in case, let's say, a request times out, or something happens, we can always retry the particular new listing. And we reached there, but then we were still not sure because we were getting a lot of errors even with the pub sub model, and we wanted to avoid those errors, and rather get things done on the very first try, right? So we contacted one of our staff level engineers, and he helped us by saying that, hey, do this. So the TCP connection setup usually takes around, let's say, 20 to 50 milliseconds of time. So when you open up a connection, keep it open for longer instead of, let's say, closing it down once every hour and then trying to open like one more connection. Which is, so when we looked at our logs, we also saw that there were errors happening once every hour or so. So his idea was, to keep the connection open, and at the same time, he said, instead of using a single connection, try using two connections by setting the limit to 5 requests per second on each of those connections. That way, you can parallelize the connections, and also you can like maximize the usability of the slow API. Yeah, and these 2 points, were absolutely correct. When we implemented these two solutions earlier, as I said, we used to face like, maybe like one or two errors every hour, like when the connection used to reset, and also in between, because whenever the rate maybe used to exceed, or the request used to time out, all those sorts of errors, they reduced by around by like 90%. I'm saying 90% because after 24 hours, when the connection used to reset, those one or two errors still used to happen. But because those events were still in the pub sub queue, we did not lose any of the new listings anyway. So overall, the solution worked fine, and it is being used as is even till date.
Okay, what was your learning from that experience? Because it sounded like you asked the other person what to do and he advised you on what to do, but where was your learning in this experiment?
Right.
So our discussion is about showing high bar in learning, right? So yeah, so let me hear your answer here.
Yeah. So, prior to this, I did not know that, we could like TCP connection setup takes, somewhere in between 20 to 50 milliseconds of time, depending on the connection speed. And that is why, like our initial requests were timing out. And I did not know, that we can keep a connection open for forever, because I used to think that, it would be security issue. But as long as it is happening internally, it is okay, to keep the connection open. That was, one of the learnings that I took from this experience. And also, the second one, that parallelizing requests and keeping a cap, of 5 requests per second. That was just, simple math, but we were not able to get to it somehow, because we did not know, that we could keep our connection open for long enough, maybe. So we were only relying, on one single connection, and with 10 requests per second, which was not working. Yeah, so my one major learning from this, was that the TCP connection can be kept open for a long period of time if you need to, like, let's say, repeatedly query a system, and as long as it is between internal servers, it is fine.
Okay, I'm on the fence for this story. The reason for that is because you didn't really show structured learning process. You pointed the two things you learned, but they were kind of like something you learned on the fly. There was no structured learning process that you had to go through to build some knowledge in a topic so that you get very comfortable on that topic so that you can basically take care of it next time without needing the help from the external expert. So I see the 2 points you learned, but they were kind of like learning on the fly without really having a process. So for example, you didn't go through training, you didn't go through maybe certification program, you didn't like, there was no structure for that learning process. You didn't do like, or maybe you did, but you didn't mention that to me. You didn't go through online learning and online classes. So you know what this is, you know what I mean? This is where I see that missing component here.
Can I then use an alternate story about GCP log correlation?
Your story is fine. You just need to fill in that area, that gap where whatever you learned from that story, make it sound like it was through like a mechanism that you went through to learn. This is where you will show like structured learning process and not only learning as, because we all like learn all this stuff on daily basis, right?
Yes.
But these things usually they come and go. They don't stick because you didn't go through that experiment. And likely when you get similar situation in the future, likely you will also need to ask someone for help because you didn't like build that knowledge, the foundation and the knowledge from down up, like to build that muscle in that topic. This is where I see it missing. Okay. All right. So we are on time. I think I like your stories actually. For the L5, for the seniority level you are aiming for, they are good stories. Just fix the few things that we mentioned in the feedback. I don't know if you have like, if you'd like us to do more, if you have time more like in the future to complete the rest of the principles, we can do it. But
I absolutely will.
you do sometime, yeah. If not, I mean, this is the framework, right? This is really no secret there. You just need to follow the star format, focus on data point, focus on, flowing the stories. So I hope that practice we had today like made it like a little easier for you to follow that framework. But if not, we can do it again. Absolutely.
Okay, so I have one question. Can I, like in the interview, can I actually use the words on like saying the situation was this, the task was this, the action was this, and the
That's
outcome?
fine. Yeah.
I can do that. Okay. Okay. So one other question I had regarding the system design questions actually. So I have read on multiple sites, that Amazon usually asks system design based on, or at least connected to, the team that I'm applying to. So let's say, if I'm applying for ads related roles, my system design question would be something like ad click aggregator, or how to design. I actually, this came as a big learning, that Amazon uses RTB, to get the, the bids, like in the real time for the ads which you show. So yeah, so are my questions going to be only around these, or can they be general questions on, like, let's say, implement a rate limiter, or maybe a bitly, and I don't know, maybe a crawler and stuff like that?
I think this might worth maybe another 30 minutes of conversation. But in general, there is no one answer to your question because it really depends on the team you are interviewing for. I would say in your case, maybe focus on the ads related solutions like the design patterns. And if you have time, work on some other popular solutions. But what's really what you need to keep in mind is that when you do a system design interview, basically no one expects you to deliver like a system design in 45 minutes, right? What they are assessing you on is really your mental model, like what is your approach to design the system, which is include asking clarifying questions, making a trade-off decisions, making the conversation, like collecting requirements and things like that. So these are the areas that are more important. So this is similar to the technical versus behavioral questions, right? So don't focus very much on the technical part, which is important, but it's not what you are 100% evaluated against. 60-70% is about really your behavior, your communication, you're asking the right questions, understanding the requirement, and having this discussion about a trade-off. And when you put a component like to articulate why you used it, why not the other component, and things like that.
Trade-offs.
So with that mindset, you go to the system design interview with less really pressure on the technical design and more on the, I would say, on the engineering part or on the conversational part. Trade-off, like how do you make scalability versus cost? How do you make security versus usability, whatever it is, right? And making these conversation, asking these questions, this is what really is important.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you. So, like, what time slots, can I book so that I would get you as my interviewer every time? That's my.
You need to contact this up. How many sessions do you have?
Oh, this is just my first session. So I guess there's a total of, I think, 12 interviews which I can schedule. So I still have 11 of them left.
Can I ask you actually questions outside of this? How did you get, like, did you go through, how did you sign up? Did you go through a course with Kickstart?
Yes. So in 2021 and 2022, I was doing the software engineering course with IK. And then I tried to switch, but I came to Canada and I switched into KGG. Now I actually took up an ML course with IK, but because I got laid off in June, now I'm like not trying to learn something new instead, and I just want another job first, and then I'll see if I can learn. So because I paid for that course, which is still active, and I have around 12 interviews left, I was able to book one through this.
I see. So you get the course and then you get part of these interviews as part of the package, but you didn't use them before. So you are using them now.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for that. I was just trying to understand the user experience where these 12 is coming from. I don't think you will need a 12 sessions with me, by the way. I actually advise you that you work with other interviewers just to get different perspective. But at least let's have 1 or 2 more sessions, me and you.
Absolutely.
Just to maybe complete the 10 principles, and then for the rest of them, go and work with another one, just get another perspective. That's important too. So to get to me, you need to go to through the support team, and they will have access to my availability. But usually this time works. If you like, maybe in the next few weeks we can do it.
Okay, perfect. So I'll try and book something for next week, starting of next week around the same time.
Sounds good.
All right.
All right. See you then. Take care. Have a good day.